So you gotta do. Okay. How's it going, everyone? This is your host, the Los Angeles tech lead, Jamie Hush. And we've been quarantined the last couple of weeks, and it's been kind of tricky thinking of content ideas. But I realized living with 5 people in Los Angeles, I actually have got some really cool roommates. And so I wanted to introduce you guys to a close friend of mine. His name's Price. Me and him get along really well because we're both in the same paths of our career on the music and computer science side, but on the inverse. So while I'm working towards trying to get more like tours under my belt and become more professional in the music industry, Price is working on transitioning more into a software engineer role. So Price has worked in the music industry for a while now. I'm teaching him how to code over the last couple of weeks. So just wanted to show you guys. Hopefully we'll have a nice before and after video on this where we can show y'all where Price is now, and then in 3 months, maybe you'll have a programming job. And then from there you can start.
Definitely.
And then from there you can sell an online course on how to get programming jobs, which we all know is the real goal.
And I know where to pivot from
at the end of this. So I wonder if you can give like a brief intro about like what it's like coming to Los Angeles. Oh, well, actually, no, just give an intro about your life so far. Like where you went from.
Okay. I will try to be concise. I went to college for music, and I kind of dove into that territory for like 7-8 years after college. I lived in New York and produced and drummed for a while, and did what you would call the grind, which I know is not unique to music, but so I just did a lot of music in that 7 years. I had a little bit of coding experience in college, and I did really enjoy it. Always wanted to go back to it, but I think after almost a decade of doing music, stability sounds nice.
Yeah, so that's interesting you put it. So I've met a lot of musicians, and you're one of the unique ones because I can count on one hand the number.
Every musician wants to be unique. So.
No, you're one of the unique ones because you actually did music stuff. So being a musician is really similar with being a screenwriter or writer.
I got lucky.
I meet a lot of people who are writers but don't write anything, and I meet a lot of musicians who do music but don't do anything.
There was plenty of periods of time where I didn't. I was not as active as I wanted to be, and I mean that kind of alludes back to the stability bit, where either you're not doing something that you should be doing, or simply the market is just not asking for you right now.
Yeah. So how did you get into? You play drums right now, right?
Yes.
So how did you get into drums?
I mean, there's a cute little story. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but. A guy, a music director, came to my school in the 4th grade and was asking people if we were interested in playing instruments, and he would name instruments, and as soon as we all raised our hand, we're like, I want to play that one. He would have us go outside, and it's a trumpet, and a few of my friends raised their hands, and I was like, I guess it sounds kind of cool, and did that, and he gave us this basically a test making sure we're not tone deaf. And I went to orientation, and then I saw a snare drum there, and I was like, I didn't hear you say that. So yeah, I'd rather do that. And so he let me switch last minute, and I was 10. I'm 29 right now.
Yeah.
And I lived in a really boring part of South Carolina, just outside of Charleston, and I didn't really have much to do. So I really just went home from school, skateboarded, and played drums. And ate, and that was like 19 years of my life. No, 15 years of my life, something like that. That's the origin story of where I played drums.
Yeah, I have a kind of similar story, except I ended up picking clarinet in grade school, and then afterwards,
to stick with that.
And then afterwards, my dad's like, when I was going to high school, I was like, oh, I want to keep doing music.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do clarinet again. And my dad's like, why don't you just get guitar lessons? I'm like, oh yeah.
You can always do both.
Yeah.
It's cool to play guitar and then be like, here's a clarinet, check it out.
But so from there you went to Berkeley, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know Berkeley's like a really big
not
name
UC
school.
Berkeley in terms of coding.
Oh, the music Berkeley, yeah.
Berkeley MA, not Berkeley CA.
Yeah.
There you go.
So both big name schools. Can you tell us what was your experience at Berkeley? Because I know a lot of my buddies really wanted to go to Berkeley, and then when they did, though, they're kind of.
Oh yeah, that's not unlike how I feel coming out of it. I mean, it's just like any other place in the world. It is what you make of it. It's really good at giving you. So rude. So rude.
One sec.
That's cool. You can
It's
answer.
Bo McCoy trying to call me. No.
We'll cut it. We'll cut it.
No. I put it on Do Not Disturb. I can't even, okay. How do you make it?
Did you?
Okay, I make it Do Not Disturb and silent. Okay, what was Berkeley like? Sorry.
No, it's cool. It's cool. It's cool. Saying it's like pretty much everywhere else, in that it is what you make of it. It is really good at giving you a lot of tools and kind of putting you in this little scaled down version of the real music industry. And I guess because of a few reasons, they constantly tell you that your peers are going to be the ones hiring you later, and that is actually one of the things that helped me out after school. Is a lot of my classmates that I worked with and didn't have a bad relationship with would be like, hey, could you do this, or or even like loose ties that were available, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know, just relationships. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to balance because you're paying for an art education in a world that doesn't pay a lot for art. And also, I mean, the content of said art is questionable, but that's another topic. But yeah, so it's just a huge dice roll, and I don't know. I'm still kind of going through whether it was I don't regret it. It was a good experience. I made a lot of friends. I learned a lot, I think, and I kind of got into coding.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So how did you? So that's a really interesting part about
If I
your
didn't
story.
answer anything, let me know.
No, because that's an interesting part about your story. Because when I first met you, I met you through one of our mutual friends
Yes.
who was a musician.
From that school.
From that school. So I met you from one of our mutual friends. I remember so as general, just small talk, like, oh, what do you do?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. How do you
I
know?
was like, I really want to code.
How do you know Kelsey? And you're like, oh, I'm just getting into coding.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I did some coding in Berkeley. So how did you do some coding at Berkeley?
So my major, I mean, you get in on your instrument of choice usually. That might have changed now. They've integrated electronic music very differently than it was when I was there. But you get in on your instrument of choice. But my major was called Electronic Production and Design, formerly known as Music Synthesis. So it's just a lot of nerdy sound design stuff. Well, it ranges. It's in an umbrella major that ranges anywhere from music production, for the sake of music production and tracks, whatever, to sound design for film, movies, video games, and coding.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where they get into C and C++ and audio DSP, which, where that was a little more interesting to me because I felt like I could produce outside of school anytime, and I felt like I was going to do that anyway. So I wanted to be in a college atmosphere where I had some tutelage around my goals or whatnot in that area. If that makes sense.
So your first introduction to programming was C and a way of making audio DSPs.
Yeah, I felt like I was thrown in the deep end with a lot of bricks tied to my foot because it wasn't a curriculum really built for beginners. In my building audio apps in C++ class, which was one of the only hard coding classes that we had. I think I've told you before, a guy sat next to he was already a computer science grad from Brown, and So on top of like the fast-paced learning of C and some C++, we didn't. Objective-C was sort of like in and out, but not as much. Not as much of a priority. That was very fast-paced and fun, in one word. And to put on top of that, it was the audio DSP, which is like very high level math. If you're like really analyzing how to build a reverb, or all the many different ways you can build a reverb, and how to tweak it, and how to physically model, circuits, and all of these things, that it was just it wasn't, the course description for that class was not correct. Mm-hmm. It was just like, or maybe it was, and I just was not prepared for it. But yeah, again, I didn't have the math chops to keep up with that part, but I did enjoy the coding.
Yeah, it's funny because when I went to university for computer science, my whole thought process was like, how do I combine music and comp sci?
Yeah.
So I thought oh, maybe I'll get into making audio DSPs.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really a course like that at my university, but I spent like 2 Sunday afternoons looking at it. And after 2 Sundays afternoons, I'm like, you know what?
No.
I kind of like making websites.
Yeah. Or like use a library or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
That's kind of, it's cool that even though like you went in for music, there was still like, you still got exposed, that little bit, that one class exposed you to enough programming that 7, 8 years later made 100%. You realize, oh shit, like I was pretty good at coding before, maybe I can do it again.
Pretty good in that I was willing to put in the effort, I think, but I was just overwhelmed at the time, and I don't know if that effort was as productive as it could have been had it been more directed.
That's really the key, though, willing to put in the effort.
Yeah.
So I've had a couple of my music friends reach out to me and be like, yo man, I'm making like $15 an hour at the studio. I'm thinking about getting married to my girlfriend
soon. Good for a studio.
Yeah, it's good.
Sad to say.
Yeah,
they often just don't
pay. Like, tell me more about this coding thing. And really, honestly, if you can deal with Pro Tools and deal with that garbage, I would tell all my music friends the same thing. If you can deal with Pro Tools, you can learn JavaScript.
Yeah.
But you have to sit down and learn it. And I find like a lot of the good musician people I talk to, like my old guitar players going to comp sci right now, the kinds of people who put in those like 10,000 plus hours just playing guitar runs over and over or doing drum fills are excellent candidates to like spend 1,000 hours learning Rails.
Yeah, I think the tough part about that analogy is like something like Pro Tools or Logic or whatever. I mean, you record and there's a product right there. I mean, you could technically just be like, hey, here's a thing, and it might sound like shit, but I don't know if it's shit, whatever. But when you're learning to code, I mean, I guess depending on what you're doing, it can feel much less gratifying for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
But then whenever you actually do get your bearings, you're like, that's really cool, and then you want to dive more into it.
That's for sure. I feel like for learning, at least for me, for learning guitar, learning to code, well, it's different for me learning code because I picked it up in grade school because I just was trying to make my Neopets store look nicer. And so I got that instant feedback right away because I learned about the font tag in CSS, and then I learned how to make it Comic Sans. I'm like, oh, I'm down. But learning guitar for me, and learning Chinese and working out, all three, whenever I learn a new skill, I find there's like a 4-month period where it just sucks.
That's fair.
So
that's probably true.
For working out, it was like 4 months of me just being sore all the time. I'm like, this sucks. For Chinese, it was like 4 months of me just being like, I can't understand any of these tones. I can't do anything. It sucks. And even for guitar, for the first like 3 or 4 months for me, I remember like not really being able to play a song.
Yeah.
But I had that motivation for guitar. Like I wanted to learn how to shred, like my favorite metal band. But I walked in thinking like, oh, I know this is going to take a while. It's okay.
Well, when you, wait, what was the store that you were talking about? CSS and...
Neopets.
Neopets, okay. Yeah. I was going to say Tamagotchi, but I know it was not that. Neopets store, when you first saw those lines of like CSS or I don't know, HTML, I guess is what you saw. Were you excited, or how did you feel?
I remember I was just like, because I saw the other Neopet stores.
Yeah.
And I really just wanted to make more Neopoints. I think this kind of really is ingrained in my personality of coming up with ways to make cash. Like I wanted to make more Neopoints and increase the sales on my Neopet store.
Yeah.
I was really into the Neopet stock market too in grade school, thinking about it too. And I found, so first I thought, oh, maybe if I make the store look super cool, more people will buy stuff. And then I learned about the marquee tag and everything.
Okay.
And I did some more research. Now I'm remembering as a grade school person, I did more research and realized, oh, it's the simple layouts where the store loads faster actually increases your sales. So
okay.
I actually learned quite a bit about e-commerce just doing Neopets.
Yeah, I mean it really comes down to motivation and like where it's coming from, or like how long is it for us, and like you were saying, the 4-month period of just like this sucks, or if the gears just start turning right away, then it's very easy. And it's, for some people, I feel like they encounter something like that in a non-intimidating atmosphere at some point in their life, so it's a bit it's something that's easier for them to want to carry through.
Right.
That's always kind of how it seemed in my case, but that's not dissimilar to music or any other skill. You know, you just like kind of toy around with it, and you feel like it's your own for a second, and then you get decent at it, and then you can.
It's like having
continue.
that goal too.
Yeah, having the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, the goal for me for music was I want to play really fast metal.
Yeah.
I really want to do that. What was the goal? What was the goal for you for music first, and then what was the goal for you to getting into coaching?
Yeah. Okay. I think really writing songs, because when my brother picked up guitar, I wanted to play guitar as well. I mean, when I was that age, I just picked up everything my brother did, but I actually started messing around with it a bit and wrote a lot of really crappy songs, but I think eventually I at least think I got better at it. I feel like my songs got better, and it felt like much more of a natural process for me. And for drums, I would just listen to music that I thought was really interesting to me and try to play what drummers that I thought were really interesting were playing in bands, you know, like that.
What was your favorite drummers as a kid?
As a kid, oh man, scared to say this out loud because I'm not a fan of them right now, but R.I.P. the Rev, Jimmy the Rev Sullivan from Avenged Sevenfold. I was a huge fan of, gosh, I forgot his name, a guy from First to Last was really good. But I mean, around that age when I tried to jump into music, or like really try to make it my own thing, those were kinds of the bands that I was into. And then like fast forward a few years, I was way more into like Mars Volta. So, you know, I learned about Thomas Pridgeon and the first drummer whose name I can't remember. But anyway, there are lots of people.
I remember that. So now you're going through Berklee, and I know a lot of people in my hometown were really trying to make careers out of music.
Yeah.
And you're in a unique position where you actually did. Like, you were able to make enough money at least to eat.
It doesn't always feel like that.
It doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
Because you tell me it doesn't feel like it. You told me like you feel like you're behind, but in reality, you made a pretty decent career out of music. So how did you bridge that gap from like, I'm just learning music, I'm just like, the music is my hobby, to like, this is like legit my job for paying for food and rent?
Well, I think going to school for music really just like, I had to try. So I sort of, for better or for worse, I took the path of least resistance after school, and I moved to New York because I knew more people there. Someone that I was dating at the time and I worked on a project that got picked up in Southeast Asia, and so like I had a little bit of a point to kick off, even though I didn't really like the song. But, and then, I mean, it was all just who you knew from there. Like, if you're a decent person and you knew someone and you were like down to work, whatever it was, then you would get an occasional gig and you're like, okay, cool, I got a couple more months rent or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I think it was after maybe like a year or two of that, I the more serious working came in when I again contacted another buddy of mine that I knew pretty well from school, who had just made a group, and I thought they would end up doing well, and I kind of like slid in there just in the nick of time, and so we worked on a major label on an album for a bit and toured, and then there it just kind of grew a little bit more, because some people knew who that band was, and they were like, hey, you did this, could you also do this? And and then so as long as you continue to do, I guess, decent work that has high visibility,
Decent work that has high visibility.
Yeah.
And boy, what a parallel that is to the software industry. Decent work with high visibility is probably the number one thing I've learned in the last 5 to 7 years. Now, I thought it was interesting you said your first kind of jump off point for music, you're like, wasn't that big fan of the song.
Oh, yeah.
The real key there was you actually wrote the song, recorded it, and finished it.
Yeah.
And people forget those 3 steps a lot.
I honestly think this might be beside the point, but I think one of the saving graces for me, again, I don't even know, it was the demo that they took as the final version. Like they sent it to a mastering engineer right after that, but like it was exam week, we were staying up late, or just not sleeping at all working on this because we thought we'd have a shot, and it was like one of my first pop songs I ever produced, and I was like taking a lot of shortcuts because I knew things didn't sound as great as they would, but I was like, I'll get back to it later because it's just a demo, like I'm submitting a songwriting idea. And they're like, no, that's good. Or they just mastered it. That was it.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I get.
That's the entire tech industry.
Got it.
The entire tech industry is you're shipping demos that you're going to fix later. And you don't.
That's good to know now. I'm very glad.
So that's another thing I tell people who are making this career transition from either music to tech or any field to tech, is the lesson you learn working any freaking job is sometimes you got to take shortcuts and ship it. And if you learn those lessons already, it doesn't matter if you start learning to code at 30 or 40, you still have half the battle, which is knowing when to ship stuff and be friendly. So I know a lot of people I talk to are worried that they're like behind in their career.
That's like, a huge feeling for sure.
Really,
that's a real feeling.
Really not.
Okay.
Really not. Because it took me like 3 or 4 years to figure that out too on the software side. So you might as well figure it out while you're doing music stuff anyway.
Yeah, I mean, my thought process was like, if I'm already putting in amounts of work that I felt uncomfortable about the payoff for, grammatically, I don't know how that works out, but then like I might as well be compensated a little bit better, I think. Not to say that not all musicians are compensated poorly, but I mean, if you're freelancing, like you do a lot of work, and sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. And again, it's just that stability where you're like, we talked about this, I can do music in a much higher capacity than I'm currently doing it by getting some stability in my life, and also like just doing that on the same basis, kind of. I don't know. Yeah,
like the big recurring story I keep hearing from all my music friends the ones I know switching to tech, I hear the same story over and over. It's like, I'm working on music I don't like, with people I don't like, for money that's not good.
Yeah.
So why not work on music a little bit less, but work on it that I like?
Yeah,
because I'll have more time with only people I like. So only work on people.
Yeah.
What I do now is I only work on music I like. I only do metal with my best friends. Like
that's
train
great.
Rami.
Yeah, exactly.
I only do metal with my best friends. Do I do it 40 hours a week? Definitely not.
No.
And in the meantime,
need to.
I get to code stuff that, sometimes kind of crappy, sometimes it's not, with people I like, by the beach and get compensated drastically better.
Yeah.
So
that's shit. There's something I was gonna say to that, but it completely left my head. God, no, I forgot what I was gonna say. No, give me a second. You can cut this part out.
Yeah.
It's gone. I don't
But
know.
not only from music industry people, but I find, like, I see a lot of people online talking about wanting to switch from being a lawyer to coding, or being a nurse to coding, or any sort of career change. It's very much like, the real thing I want to get across is the first 10 years of your career, or 5 years of your career, or 15 years of your career, where you learn how to deal with annoying people and ship stuff, that carries over. That all carries over.
That's
You just have to learn Rails now.
Yeah.
So speaking of learning Rails now, so I've been kind of, Shung's our other roommate's a software engineer.
Yeah.
When we met you, we basically told you exactly what to do.
Yes.
So what are some of the things that me and Shung have been making you do to get prepared on the tech side, now that you know the dealing with annoying people side from your music career?
I would say it feels like a healthy balance. What I would imagine is a healthy balance of guidance with letting me drown in finding what's wrong with code at times, and it's partially the convention, learning the conventional, like, do you know how to code tests, of learning your data structures and algorithms really, really well. And then, just learning, like, web frameworks and web apps and stuff like that. So currently I am doing both Ruby on Rails and just a lot of data structures and algorithms in Python.
Yeah, and I'll link to this in the description, because
Yeah.
I've seen so many tutorials, and it's really common for a lot of people to get stuck in tutorial hell.
Yeah.
Where they just learn how to write a for loop in 6 different programming languages.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty common. So a good way to get around that is to do, like, a coding boot camp. Given the current circumstances, we can't really do a coding boot camp right now.
It's actually really funny.
Quarantine.
Because that was one of the plans, or I was one of the things that I was looking into. And again, Shang, I spoke to you about a boot camp, and I spoke to your other mate Matthew about it, and then Shang came along and was like, "You don't need to pay more than like $500 in order to do this. Make sure it's still going." So make sure this is still going. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, cool. We got a battery now, so we can record video and audio.
Hey.
Yeah. So I think we're talking about
boot camps.
Yeah.
I mean, other stuff too, but that's, I was commenting on that.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to back up a little bit. One of the things that really, snapped in my head, or one of the things that, made, God, how do I phrase this? That made that decision to switch over to coding final was, that a friend of mine from my hometown moved to New York to work remotely from software. What kind of company? I forgot what they do. Some software firm in Charleston, and I immediately reached out to him because I've known him for a really long time, and he was like, "Really? I just went to a boot camp and paid money and did it."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, cool. Well, maybe I should look into that." And I started looking into boot camps. Is the lighting okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So for a while that was kind of the play, just because as a musician who was kind of getting tired and wanting to transition out of it, I was doing less work, and the model of take the boot camp now and then pay later was obviously really appealing, because I just needed to work on cost of living, and that was it. I will say App Academy, and I don't know, you don't have to include this, but
Yeah.
App Academy's online course prep is really similar to the Rails tutorial
Yeah.
thing that I'm doing, and it was actually like very good. Like I
Yeah.
don't know, I was like, I feel like you can know nothing about programming going into this sort of behemoth like undertaking for someone in that role, but like learn a hell of a lot. But yeah, so I was thinking about doing a coding boot camp, and then Sean came in, and you guys all kind of commented like, really, it's just these few things, and like, get good at it.
Yeah, so the main thing I found with coding boot camps, it's similar. The main big reason why going to school is still helpful, and the main reason why I still do night school courses for things, even though you technically can learn it all online.
Yeah.
Now, people get all caught up because they think about logic and technical, like, I can technically do this all by myself. I can technically do that.
Yeah.
But then you forget that human beings are emotional creatures. And it's amazing how much more you learn when you're in a class with like 30 people, you're in a group project with 2 of them, and if you don't do your crap, like they'll get mad at you.
I think that's why I went to music school. Actually, I liked software, or I liked the sciences. I liked engineering, things like that, more innately. But going to school, I just hated school.
Yeah.
I hated, and so I was like, oh wait, I can like do music in college. That's great. I'll do that. And so, but and then the funny part of it was, I think I had I had to confront really enjoying all of those things that I felt like I grew up enjoying. Again, like whether it's, I don't know, like kids just like science, you know? You open up like some weird circuit board and you're like, whoa, what the hell is that? And it's really cool. Or, you get the idea. But going to school across the street from MIT and getting to go over there a bit was like half very fortunate because I felt like I got to remain close to it and remain reminded that I liked it, which was a big motivating factor. But also it was just like, damn it, like these kids still have that innate interest and drive, and I totally checked out in school because I hated my teachers and I thought everything was kind of like, I did well for the most part until like second half of high school.
Yeah.
But I just didn't like it. So
Yeah, I had a hard time
Digressing.
with school, like high school, the second half of high school and university too. I can do the night school classes now, like the 8-week classes where you do like 2 nights a week.
Yeah.
That's cool because it's only 8 weeks, so I can get it through that.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a struggle. Every once in a while, I think about getting an MBA, and I'm like, nah.
No.
Nah.
Well,
exactly.
if you don't need it, then you don't need it.
So the 2 big ones I recommended to you and recommend to everyone is the Grokking the Coding interview.
Yeah.
That's really good for optimizing just on coding interviews. So optimizing the data structures, algorithms, kind of stuff that all these big companies ask for. But then you also have to learn like none of that really happens on the job. Most of the time on the job, you're just fixing old Rails code or fixing old PHP code. So the other one I always recommend, I did this 6-7 years ago, was the Michael Hartle Ruby on Rails tutorial, which not only teaches you Rails, but teaches you unit testing, deploying stuff, and more importantly, teaches you like, gives you the practice of when something's broken on your computer, how to fix it. So that was a good thing, funny thing that happened the other day was, you spent a whole day wondering why a Rails test wasn't running. You brought it to me, you brought it to Sheng. We spent like 15 minutes, couldn't figure it out.
Yep.
And then you learned the valuable lesson of making sure you use the same version as Ruby as everyone else.
Yeah. Or that documentation can sometimes be wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Because I can go into what that error was a little more, but totally. That was a good lesson.
And if you're doing JavaScript, documentation is always wrong. All the time.
I'm sure
you just have to look at the code correctly. Yeah. What was the real point where you're doing your music thing and you're like, man, I gotta switch. I like music, but I gotta think of a new base career-wise.
Really, it was just getting tired and generally fatigued. I mean, I feel like there's probably a few factors. I mean, over like many years of like what you feel like is really hard work that you're putting like maybe a little more emotion into than other people might be doing in their jobs and are getting compensated more for. Again, I mean, it's not always the case, but you know, it just, in that position, everything looks a little bit better. Like, it was just the logic behind it. It was so. I mean, like I said, I have liked coding. I like it for a lot of reasons, and I have never wanted to distance myself from it fully. So it's always been in the back of my head to like rekindle that relationship with code or development. But yeah, it was really after like I just one of the larger projects I was working on kind of went more or less south-ish. I don't know, depending on who you're talking to. I was just like really tired and decided that I wanted to take a break from it. And then it was shortly after that that I talked to that friend who is still in New York and doing software. And I was like, I want to do that. Like, if I can work remote and do whatever, I'm good. I'm totally good. So it was just the years of putting in the work and I guess two other more immediate things where a project ended and then another like career path sort of like came out from the wilderness. Yeah, that was about it.
Yeah, it's true though, and one of the big pluses for a coding job is it's very doable to get remote work. So a lot of people focus, especially on YouTube, like some of these tech YouTubers really focus on getting into the Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google companies. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like it's higher status. You don't necessarily work in anything better or worse at one of those companies. It really depends where you're at. Compensation is usually extremely high too. But like, bro, I was working from Canada remotely for an American company back fresh out of school.
That's pretty great.
And it was pretty great. I was getting paid at the bottom tier for a Los Angeles engineer, which meant
so fun.
which has meant I was like double the salary of Canada, back in Canada. And so I have a few friends in Canada who do the same thing. Like and this goes back to your Berkeley. You leverage the connections to get into those music projects.
Yeah.
I'm like that connection for my Canada friends. I've gotten a couple of friends some dope remote gigs.
Really?
Because I either went to school with them.
Friends, of course.
But because I either went to school with them, or one in particular I worked with at the very first agency's job I was at, and he was like the best friend and engineer I ever worked with. And from that point on, whenever there's a random remote gig in LA, like he gets it first.
Really?
He gets it first.
That's great.
And probably once every 4 months, I message him. I'm like, bro, just move. Like, how much money you want?
Oh, he's still in Canada.
He's still in Canada. He got married. He loves it there. I'm like, bro, how much money you want? Like, come work with here. I'll tell you all the answers to the interview questions. Like, I know what everyone does. Like, you can pass. Like, easy to pass. I'll put my neck out for you.
Yeah.
But so yeah, remote-wise, like, especially if you're balancing music career, you really don't have to be that amazing to like pick up these remote like right now you're used to picking up audio production contracts, audio production gigs. Picking up like fixing people's garbage apps gigs, there's way more of them. They're way more lucrative, and all the like smart people are all like optimizing, like getting into the top tech companies.
All this like low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, all the like smart people who are like super passionate and treat coding like an art are off being depressed at Google while still making lots of money because they don't have any. They're like, oh, I've worked so hard because I'm truly passionate about computer science, but at the end of the day, I'm just making CRUD apps.
Yeah.
They're all over there. So as a musician, it's very doable to pick up these like fixing WordPress, and they still charge like 150 bucks an hour.
Yeah,
It's just
that's so
fixing
much more.
garbage.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
so like, and it works out great where you can pick up these 3-month contracts, 2-month contracts in
Yeah.
between like tours or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
that's why I was saying, like, me and
gonna be-
you
yeah.
are like left and right, and we're gonna converge in the middle one day.
One day, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the hypothetical of not having to drop the gigs that I want to take, and having, work in between, and also being able to, like, healthily go for my own stuff. It's like, exactly, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So that's sort of why I wanted to make the change.
Yeah, definitely. So we really got to. Well, luckily, we live together, so we're keeping up progress. But what's your goals right now on the programming side? What do you want to? Where do you see yourself like the next 6 months, the next 3 months, and the next year?
Oh, next 3 months, I hope to be employed by somebody. 6 months, I hope. I don't even know. It's really hard to tell because right now I'm just tunnel visioned on like, all right, get this stuff done, know this and that, and trying not to get too distracted. To really think about 6 months from now, I don't know. Hope that I'm like
Still employed.
still employed. Yeah, really. Yeah, and doing a good job. Like it's something that I do want to excel at. So I would like to know enough to get into a job right now, but also enough to like, you learn if you look at something enough, like it eventually becomes really interesting. And like, I want to get to that point as well. Not that it's not interesting right now, but I want to know all of the different elements so that I can dive a little bit farther into the things. And even though maybe 80% of the work is just like finding bugs and stuff, but
Fixing stuff with a good attitude, you'll always have a career.
yeah,
Always
but
have a job.
I think I still like mixing, just further self-study. It's fun. But yeah, 6 months, still have a job, and getting better, I guess. And then a year, we'll see.
Who knows what's gonna happen?
Yeah, hopefully this whole quarantine thing will be over, but I don't know. Who's
If
to
it doesn't,
say?
at least you're on track to get that remote gig.
Yeah, the right gig. Yeah.
Is there any other like advice or anything you'd give to anyone who's like there's going to be people watching this video who are like on the like they've gone to YouTube and typed in like how to get into coding. So there's going to be people
How to
who
get
are
into
watching this and looking for any bit of advice. Do you have anything for
Yeah.
them?
Stick to like one language or and stick to one path for a little bit and just push through that for a while. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I would savor your advice before mine, but right now I think that was my biggest hang up is like it from the outside it looks like there are so many different approaches to getting into it, and it's just like just to do it. I don't know. that
Take
sounds
action.
cheesy. Yeah, I mean that applied with music too, and I was too thick at the moment to really take my own musical advice to to get into software more efficiently. But I have learned that lesson, I think.
It's take action.
Take action.
Show up is really
Yeah.
showing up is 90% of the battle, and the other 10% is showing up again.
Yeah. Showing up again. and
The
again.
big ones, the more tactical ones for me is like, out of all the tutorials, at least in 2020 that I've seen so far, focus on the, Grokking the Coding interview, and the Michael Hartle Rails one, and I'll put links in the description for that. Focus on those two.
Yeah.
Try to get a buddy who's an engineer. You're really smart. You just moved in with a bunch of us. So if you can move in with a bunch of engineers, that's a
But
good
then we
way.
got quarantine and my other work.
Yeah. Then we
Yeah,
got
it's
quarantine,
great.
but now you're like super moved in.
Yeah, super.
I've been giving
yeah.
you fake interviews every couple of days.
Yes, that's great. Yeah, and those are really interesting and helpful. Trying to think of anything else like that stuck out to me. Every once in a while, I'll meet another software engineer, and every once in a while they'll be like, really stoked that I'm stoked about it. And you're like, no, dude, like it's great. And so
it seems like all the engineer people you've met have been helpful.
I feel like I've been lucky in that sense. Yeah. Well, I mean, one of my best friends from high school, he's, I don't know his title, but he has been a software developer for a long time. And I think over the years with my like teasing myself and getting back into software, he's always been like kind of helpful and pointing at things. But digressing and not even know what I'm saying. Yeah, no, but they've all been really helpful. I do feel like I've been lucky at that. Yeah.
I feel like everyone's down to help that I've run into, especially old friends or anyone from college. Like I said, you're probably the fourth or fifth person to reach out to me for help.
Yeah, I mean,
this, and you're the only one to actually follow my advice.
Yeah, I mean, that's doing the work. That's the thing, doing the work. God, what was I gonna say? Shit. What were we just talking about?
Yeah, this is advice for getting in.
Yeah.
But doing the work's the main one.
Advice for getting in. I think people, there's not too much to lose, if anything, by being helpful. In music, like, especially in LA, there's like a highly competitive atmosphere. There's, the entertainment industry in general is just like completely different in terms of like who you want to help out and when, and like being tactical about your relationships. And this is more just like, no, like I'm straight up very vulnerable right now. I would love to just move into this. What your life? Can I have that?
Everyone's like, we're hiring 3 people right now.
So, that's, don't be a dick. It's a good way to
imagine if every single band in the world was required Dream Theater level drum and bass shops, and then multiply the number of bands by 2, and that's how many openings there are for someone who's competent at coding.
Yeah, that's I don't know.
And it takes a lot less effort, I'd feel, to get to that level of coding than it does to get that good at bass guitar or drums.
I'll let you know when I get that good at coding.
Exactly. Okay, sounds good. Well, thanks so much for sitting down with me.
You have a follow-up or something in a few months?
We'll have a follow-up in a few months, one way or the other.
Sounds good.
If you're successful,
or you just find a garbage can down the street and be like, hey, buddy, sorry it didn't work out for you.
Definitely have the motivation. But that's cool. So let us know if you have any other questions for Mirror Price, anything from music or tech. I'm hoping to do a bunch more of these interviews in the future. I'm going to add some links to the Rails tutorial that I absolutely love, my favorite web development tutorial ever, and the Grok and the Coding interview, which I like for actually solving the interviews, in the description.
I don't know if, as a beginner, I can vouch for anything.
Yeah, what do you want to vouch for?
I just really like the App Academy. Their like getting starter package.
Yeah.
Really
and App
good.
Academy, one of our Matthew, he went to App Academy.
Yep.
And that's really great too, if you're not quarantined. If you're not quarantined
Again,
and you don't have you can't move in with like 3 software engineers.
Yeah.
Definitely
their online course,
like
their online prep course is what it is. And that was great.
Yeah, the key is to be surrounded by people who are motivated too.
Yes.
But again, if you like the video, please drop a like, hit subscribe, and smash that notification bell. And I'll keep bringing great software engineering music content to you in the future. So let's see you later.
Toodles.
I said
toodles.
That works.
Smash that like button. Where'd you get that one from?